Hello, today we're going to talk about affection exchange theory, which is taken from chapter 2 of your textbook for family communication. All right, let's start. We're going to discuss the purpose and assumptions of affection exchange theory, or AET. We're also going to cover the basic principles as well as studies that have utilized AET to better understand family communication. And finally, I'm going to close this mini lecture by talking about several questions that I want you to think about the answers and write them down, and then we'll discuss when we see each other for our face-to-face session on Wednesday. All right, let's start with the purpose and assumptions of AET. So this theory is relatively new. It was first proposed in 2001, but it has gained quite a popularity. A lot of communication scholars like to use this when they're discussing about affection communication among family members. Now, it is a scientific communication theory that belongs to the post-positivist tradition. And what it means is that most scholars who are using this theory would use quantitative method in finding out the answers to their research questions. And as you know, when it comes to quantitative approach, most of the time the method that they're using are surveys. And so they would ask questions and they would send the surveys to a high number of people so that they can count the results and discuss the findings. Now, its principal purpose of AET is to explain why human beings communicate affection to one another and the consequences of this affectionate communication. Its fundamental assumptions are grounded in neo-Darwinian ideas, and it is based on two big assumptions. One is that humans, like other living organisms, are subject to the principles of natural selection and sexual selections. So think about survival of the fittest. We are here as a biological creature, and our purpose is to procreate and to make sure that our existence in the earth will continue even when we have passed away. So it is very important for us to think about being able to pass our genetic materials to our next generations. Now, the next one is that human communicative behavior is only partially subject to the control of the communicator. Other factors such as hormones or mood swings or something like that affect communicative behaviors in ways that are not conscious to the communicator. So in other words, we as a biological being, we don't have full control of how we communicate with others. There are other factors that basically control how we feel, how we would like to communicate our ideas at any given moments in time. So by now you must have quite understood how this theory, this affections exchange theory, is using biology principles as the underlying principles for the theory. And it is quite unique in that sense because it's not using the social principles for the theory, but instead using biology. And this may lead to our assessments of the strengths and the weaknesses of AET as well. Now, the main goals and features of AET, well, there are three key propositions. Number one, humans are born with the ability and the need to feel affection. So it is inherent in ourself, this ability to show affections and the need to feel affection. And that affectionate feelings and expressions are two distinct experiences that often exist together, but they can also exist exclusively. So, for instance, I can have an affectionate feeling, but I may not know how to express it. And so, as a result, I have an exclusively affectionate feeling, but I do not express those feelings. Or it can also be the other way around. I may express my affections, but I may not have a genuine affectionate feelings when I was expressing it. So it may be because you're trying to maintain a relationship, even though at that moment you don't have the feeling, but you just want to make sure that your partner feels like you're being affectionate to them. And so you express that even though you don't feel a genuine affectionate feeling at that moment. So this is what I meant by they can exist together, but they can also exist exclusively, just the feeling or just the expression without the other. Now, the third one is we're talking about receiving and conveying affectionate expressions contribute to survival and procreating success. And this is where the biology part is very strong. So, the idea here is that conveying affection to a romantic partner can denote the emotional capacity and commitment necessary to be a loving mate and a responsible parent. So, from this perspective, the need for us to show affection is not just because we need to, but because it's also important to convince our partner that this affectionate behavior will make them feel like we will be a good parent who's going to be caring for our future baby, and that we have the commitment that is necessary to raise that baby. So this biology, reasoning behind this behavior is very strong here. Now, moreover, AET also believes that because the motivations of survivals and procreations are so fundamental to humans, exchanging affection can lead to better immune system, reduce stress, and emotional rewards for the people in a relationship. So this is we're talking about the health benefits of showing affection to our partner. It's not only going to be good for ourselves, good for the health of the relationship, but also good for the physical well-being of our partner as well. So in other words, it's healthy all around. However, we need to note that not all affectionate behavior enhances survival and procreation. And this is because not all affectionate behaviors are welcome by our partner or by our family member, because we need to understand that not everybody have the same level of affection. So AET thus proposes that humans vary in their optimal tolerances for affection and affectionate behavior, and that affectionate behavior that violate the range of optimal tolerance are psychologically aversive. Yeah, so people who do not like to be touched that much, for instance, and then who have a family member who likes to be very affectionate and showing it by touching a lot, that will not be reciprocate, and the person who are on the receiving ends of all that physical touch may end up resenting this other person who keeps on doing it. So we need to understand the boundaries, as well as understand that when it is not welcome by the other person, then the health benefits is not going to be there, both for the relationship benefit as well as the benefits of the physical health of the people who are in that relationship. Now, we need to understand that when we're talking about affection exchange theory, the way it defines communication is very narrowed. So AET conceptually defines only affectionate communication rather than communication in general. And this makes sense because this theory is very focused on the exchanges of affections. So there are three forms of affection display that is perceived by this theory. The first one is verbal communication, and this involves spoken or written affectionate expressions such as "I love you," or "you make me happy," or "I enjoy spending time with you," for instance. That statements that are verbally stated or written, that becomes a verbal communication form of affection display. Now, the other one is what we call as direct nonverbal, and these are the non-linguistic or paralinguistic behaviors that denote affection within its cultural context. And so what I meant by this is that every culture has their own way of displaying affections through nonverbal behaviors, be it non-linguistic or paralinguistic. So in the case that I'm showing here, such as holding hands, huggings, or kissings, those are the non-linguistic, behavior that is commonly accepted in North American culture as an affection display. Now, the last one is the indirect nonverbal, and these are behaviors that connote affection through the provision of social or material support. And here I'm providing example of, for instance, when we offer to pick up our friend at the airport, or when we offer to help them with their homework. These are the behaviors within this cultural context that show that we are showing affection through actions. Yeah, actions that are not direct. All right. Now, when it comes to research and practical application of AET, as I said, even though it's relatively new, there are so many researchers and studies that have used these theories to help answer their research questions. And most studies using AET fall into two big categories. Either those that focus on which relationships are more affectionate than others, and there are those that focus on the mental and physical health benefits of being affectionate. So if you take a look at those studies that have been published after 2001 that use these theories, most of the research questions are focusing either on one or the other. Now, the last part of our discussions about affection exchange theory is we're going to talk about strengths and weaknesses. So here, as the book chapters discuss, there are three strengths that we're going to cover. The first one is that it explains a wide range of findings on affections identified by studies conducted within different theoretic traditions. So as a theory, AET is quite big enough as an umbrella to be able to absorb the smaller theories to fall under its umbrella. And so it will be able to explain a lot more than the smaller theories that talk about affection in the past. It also answers higher order questions about affectionate communication, such as why human beings are affectionate in the first place. And then it provides empirical support not only in the areas of family relationships and health, but also in nonverbal communications and persuasion. And the two weaknesses that are addressed here is that unfortunately it lacks details regarding the pathways through which affectionate communication contributes to physical health. So there's no detailed explanation as to how. And then the theory also fails to specify the cultural, political, economic, or environmental variables that accounts for the most variance in affectionate behavior. And this is the limitation, like what I discussed at the beginning of this mini lecture, is that because it's using the biology perspective, so it's not truly inclusive when it comes to the cultural, political, economic, or environmental variables in looking at this idea of affection. So that's it for the mini lecture. And I would like to invite you to look at the guided thinking activity. I have 4 questions here. The first one is, what 2 questions do you have about AET? Do you agree or disagree with the strengths and weaknesses? Why or why not? The third one is, are there any other strengths or weaknesses that you would like to add? And finally, if you are asked to use this theory to your own family communication study, what topic would you choose and why this would be the best theory to use? So write down your answers in your own notes, and we'll discuss them in class when I see you on Wednesday. And I look forward to discussing about this theory more and covering chapter 3 of your textbook. Thank you so much.